Welcome to Talk of the Town, brought to you by Uniquely Nelson. I'm Chris Butler, and it's a pleasure, as always, to welcome back Uniquely Nelson General Manager Simon Duffy. Hey, Simon, how are you, mate?
I love being here. I wish you
Yeah,
wanted to
isn't
see
it?
what
I
I can
mean,
see. This is different.
it's a shame we don't have a roving camera, but honestly, it's like walking into Melbourne or London or something, isn't it? So we'll talk more about that development. It's our great pleasure to welcome to the podcast the Right Honourable Mayor of Nelson, Nick Smith. Fantastic to have you here, Nick.
Oh, wonderful to be here, Chris. And I appreciate both the work of you and Simon with Uniquely Nelson.
Thank you.
Now, with you're into your second term, so I mean you're well into it now. It's almost April, isn't it, after the election last time? So some familiar faces, but some new faces as well. How's the team shaping up, and how do you think they're settling into their roles?
Well, I'm feeling very optimistic about the state of the council. The newly elected council was largely a message of confidence in the direction that we were headed. The big priority is revitalisation of the central city. And the broader story for both Nelson and the region around economic recovery, I was actually feeling pretty damn bullish at the beginning of 26. You know, we've got the Bridge to Better project going, the hospital project with the government is rocking and rolling. The government made the commitment to get on with the design investigation work on the Hope bypass. In the private sector, you know, we've got the Mahi Tahi development, which is huge. You know, $500 million being spent up there, getting underway. What's going on in Morrison Square? You know, these Bridge Street studios, a lot happening positively. And while we've sort of got the doom and the uncertainty associated with the Iranian war, I'm just wanting for the community and the council to just keep its nerve, retain its confidence. We'll get through this, albeit, you know, the impact on fuel prices is just inevitably going to have going into winter in a bit more of a difficult mindset.
Mm.
You've had a long career, and I met you many times when you were the National MP for Nelson, Tasman. What did you learn from the first term as mayor that you brought to the second term? What was different for you?
Yeah, the first term was that when I became mayor, the council was in a bit of a mess. You know, there was huge friction where council members wouldn't even sit in the same room with each other. You had a chief executive walking out the door. In a number of policy areas, I think the council had got itself a bit out of step. And so the first term was very much getting familiar with local government, settling the team down, building trust between both the staff and also between councillors. Now, going into the second term, there's a really good consensus around the table around the objectives of city revitalisation. And the challenge for us is to translate that ambition into real action. Now, it's not without its pain. You know, the Bridge to Better project is the biggest council project that we've had since the early 2000s with the Tandra D water treatment plant. It's a massive amount of money. All sorts of things can go wrong. You know, you're dealing with contractors, they're big diesel consumers. So, you know, the price pressures, trying to keep it on track, the level of complexity with every one of the businesses in the street. You know, I don't discount the fact that it is a nightmare for the businesses that are there. But we've got to stay focused on the prize and get that job done. The next really big thing for council to take to our community is where we go with Civic House and the library. Being sort of kicked down the road sort of a project, where we're going to go with that. And then the other one that I'm super excited about is in terms of the Nelson waterfront area. Last year, we secured the last of the properties in that area. I have a very strong view that the future of the city is with its connections to the ocean. And I mean that with respect to the port, with aquaculture, with the seafood industry, with marine engineering. And I think we've got a wonderful opportunity in the same sort of thing that we see with these Bridge Street studios to make the best of those heritage buildings, but to refresh them. I don't know whether listeners have been down to Christchurch. and gone into that riverside area
Yeah.
and seen what they've done with that part of the city,
Yeah.
that's the sort of inspiration. And I have looked around last term, a number of councils, whether I go to New Plymouth, whether I go to the Heart, whether I go to Napier, every one of them, Palmerston North, with the Manawatu River, every one of them that have developed waterfront areas have got huge community support. And we've just got to get our head around how we deal with the unique challenges of that Wakefield Quay area and make it into the sort of asset. It's a bit controversial, but what the Tasman District Council did with Mapua has been a success story. We don't want to suck hospitality and other aspects out of the central city, but there is a real opportunity in that connection to the sea to do something pretty exciting. So they're the sort of priorities we've got on our program.
I was down in Christchurch about 6 weeks ago. Took some teenagers down there to see the Lord show, musician, not the Lord. And I walked through there, and the whole town was buzzing, and the river, the market, and I thought I was in Melbourne. And when we did the launch here, with the guys that launched here a couple of weeks ago, and I came in, and I had that same feeling, a smaller version, but there's a vision. And
I think what you're seeing with the economic recovery is, I saw it in the early 90s, saw it again in the 2010s, is that it tended to start in the South Island. It tends to start in the export-orientated sectors. So in the Lake Street Regional Economic Survey, you're seeing the Otagos, the Southlands, the Canterburys rocketing and rolling. I think positivity is infectious, and it will spread north. I think that sort of dynamic that you're seeing in Christchurch, we have to see, well, what can we learn from them, and how can we piggyback on this lift of economic confidence in the South Island? I think it is spreading north. That's one of the things that gives me confidence.
Yeah, and we felt that arterial route, didn't we, during COVID? Because when Christchurch was affected, we were affected majorly. We went very quiet. So, we really want Canterbury to be on song, don't we?
Yes, we do. They've got the new stadium opening up next month, and that's a big deal for Christchurch. They've got their planning rules sorted well. And of course, the South Island is primarily an economy that's dependent on agriculture and on tourism. And we've got to see, where is our piece of the pie in that broader New Zealand story of recovery? And like I say, I'm particularly focused on those marine opportunities.
We're sitting on Bridge Street with a fabulous new development, and obviously they'll be very keen to see the completion of the project, because then they can really take advantage of the beautiful buildings here and what they've done. So on that, how is that going? And can you give us a little bit of background about what they're finding? Because digging into, pipes from the 18th century, is that right?
Yeah, it is. Well, I think the first thing for the city to understand is that the driver for Bridge Street was fundamentally infrastructure. We've got old sewage pipes, old water pipes, old stormwater systems that date back to the 19th century. And the real light bulb moment for me was in talking with developers who were prepared to spend tens of millions of dollars on new buildings in this part of our city, but we're told, well, actually, sorry, we don't have the drinking water capacity. You're going to have to put drinking water tanks on your roof. Oh, oops, we don't have the capacity in the sewage network. You're going to have to put in your basement major wastewater storage tanks, adding millions of dollars onto projects. Surprise, surprise, they walk away. And then the second part is, well, if you're going to have to rip the street up to fix the water network, shouldn't you bite the bullet and do the lot? I know how disruptive it is, but if you are going to, let's make sure we do the power with Network Tasman. Let's make sure that we are doing the fibre with Spark, do the full hog, and at the same time redo the streetscape. And it's also worth sharing what's my sort of broader vision of our CBD. And it is effectively this. And it's been interesting talking to, do we need a mall in the central city? What's that sort of conversation? In my view, and it's been interesting, the commentary with businesses like PB Tech and why they've come to town. My view is that ring road system of the Halifax, Collingwood, Selwyn, and Rutherford streets needs to be a very effective transport circuit to get people in and out of the city. And then within that, both on Hardy and on Bridge Street and on Trafalgar Street, we need to create an atmosphere that is as more like and as user-friendly for the shopper hospitality professional services as possible. And then what we do need to do is to make sure that we are strengthening all modes of transport. I don't care whether people are coming into town by car, by bike, or by bus, but you need to make that connectivity as easy and convenient as possible, effectively creating in that CBD atmosphere a sort of a super mall with agencies likes of Uniquely Nelson almost operating with the businesses in that area with a mall type atmosphere in the way in which they market collectively, it being a great place for people to come into the city.
The bus precinct, pretty much underway now, in full operation. Are you seeing an increase in public transport?
Well, quite clearly, with the fuel price going through the roof, that's a pressure point. We're actually the first council in the country to positively react by this week starting new earlier bus services. Now, it was sort of in the pipeline, but the Regional Transport Committee that I chair said, hang on, guys, let's pull this out as quickly as we can. We've seen a 6% increase in the number of people using that e-bus service. That's a delight. The blooming relief is that so many of my equivalent councils around the country are sweating with their fuel bill going through the roof, such that I asked our transport guys, hey, look, I know it was a pretty marginal call. We were the very first city to choose to go with a new e-bus fleet. You always get a bit nervous when you're the first sort of cab off the block, off the rank. Actually, our council would be faced with a bill of an extra 50 grand a month, 600 grand a year, if we were still running diesel buses. So we've improved that service. I'm delighted. The most common comment I've had about our new bus hub is that, that bus hub makes me feel like we live in a city. In the sense that you have a public transport system with good communication and good routes. We're going to need to continue to refine it. The new early service is just the sort of next step. The next step that we're wanting to move after that is, convenience is everything, whether it's shopping or transport or our CBD. And the next step is the Moto Move project. That's so that you don't need a special B card to go on the bus. You can just use your standard debit card, and that's the next big step for that bus service. They
do that in Sydney. So you can buy a card, a special transport card, or just use your and they cap it at $17 per day rate, which I thought in Sydney is pretty good. But
it's not bad. So there's still improvements we can make there. But here's what I don't want us to do. I think it's very easy for us to get dragged down onto a whole of, it's buses versus bikes versus cars. No, it's not. It's all of them.
Yeah.
And exactly the same in terms of that discussion about the future of the CBD area. Equally so, we need to be careful that it's not an either or. So I had say, look, Nick, the future of the city is tech sector, or the future of the city is with NMIT and getting more students here. The future of the city is getting more professional services. No, it's not, Nick. It's more hotels and hospitality. I have a simple view. It's all of the above.
Absolutely.
That if we want a really vital city, I have been concerned about the number of professional services, and I don't care whether they're surveying businesses, lawyers, accountants, all those, whether they are human resources companies, whether they are PR companies, communication companies. Too many of them have made the choice in the last decade to relocate to Richmond. We've got to make the CBD work for those professional services, not just because we want them in the city, but we want their customers coming into the city and buying the coffee and doing some retail shop at the same time. And that does mean that we need to get our head around how are we going to be able to provide parking, not just for the customer. And I am jealous that the parking in those big car parks does need to be protected for the customer, but how do we make it also viable for the employee of the surveying lawyer and other businesses, and how we get our head around that in a sensible way?
There's been a lot of talk around the development of the CBD and the vision, and obviously what's happening on Bridge Street and here and Morrison Square. Are there any other projects that you could Because that thing with
I'm excited, and I've got a couple in the pipeline. I hope to be making announcements in the next few months. They are commercially sensitive at this point, but both of them are huge investments, very positive for the city. Big call out to our local entrepreneurs that have picked up Morrison Square. I was so depressed when ACC and government agencies just operate so slow. The risk for us with Morrison Square was it sat as a commercial graveyard for a decade while a public agency sorted out what to do. We do deserve to say big thanks to the entrepreneurs that have picked up that project and councillors working closely with them around it. I've got a couple of other developments of which discussions are well advanced and look forward to announcing those. I think the bit we've got to understand is, yes, the council needs to invest in our CBD and make it happen, but the city is not going to thrive without private sector investment. That is the key. Every damn dollar the council spends is a dollar off ratepayers. And of course, the council's under tremendous pressure around trying to keep our rates. And that challenge has got even more difficult with many of our suppliers being big consumers of fuel. So we're under pressure financially, and that doesn't mean that we lose our nerve and we don't keep doing stuff, but it does mean that we have to apply a very tough lens of value for money over everything we're doing.
Yeah, and I think, if you can create an environment where investors are working with, a friendly organisation, you don't necessarily have to build everything. It's more about trying to create a supportive environment for those investors that are willing to do it. If too many roadblocks, they're going to look elsewhere, aren't they? So that's my perception.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Try getting the right culture into our council. And look, I do give credit to my chief executive, Nigel Philpott. He is really trying to change a big organisation to being a can-do organisation. And whether it's in the area of our resource consents or our building consents or our liquor licensing, we've got a job to do to make our regulatory services more user-friendly. The government's being of some help. There is a question that people don't understand, and that is, at the moment, if you do a building project and it goes to custard, the council is currently 100% liable. And we shouldn't be surprised that our building officials are anal in wanting to be absolutely sure that there is no liability for the ratepayer. And there are appalling examples around the country where councils have been hit with horrendous bills. The government is changing the law on that, and our job inside the council is also to change the culture.
Yeah.
Just going back to the council, talking about a new civic centre, possibly of a library being part of that. Have you got any? Are you able to disclose where you?
Well, certainly the
council. There's 2 or 3.
Are you looking for a scoop?
Yeah.
Are you looking for a scoop?
They need ice cream.
Yeah. You're a trier. The bit that's absolutely true is that our council is of a view that you are best to have a civic hub, a single centre that incorporates both your library. And I've had a bit of a look at what they've done in Ashburton, what they've done in Palmerston North, and a number of other cities. And this further thing to recognise is that nature of libraries has changed. I'm sorry, the information age has hit the book, and the way in which we create a community centre. So the council's pretty committed to an integrated facility. Now, whether that is of a refurbished civic house combined or whether it is a new site, is that we've got some pretty competent professionals providing us with options. We are going to go to the community in the second half of this year and say, look, you could do this, you could do this, you could do this. And I'm going into that process with a pretty open mind. I am of a view, and that is this. Council actually did a pretty good deal in buying the old post office back in the 1980s and the civic house. But it hasn't had much more than $1 spent on it in the 6 years since. And all of its services are about stuffed. And yeah, you might be able to kick it down the road for 3 or 4 years, but that's been on the agenda of council for about 10, 15 years. We're going to have to make a call about where we go with that. And it will be a big deal in the second half of this year about giving the community some choices and trying to take them with us on what will be a big project for the city.
We mentioned it before. It feels like businesses haven't been able to catch a break. I mean, we've had COVID, then a recession, then global pressures with the Ukraine war just as we're getting going. And now, we've got the Iran situation with petrol prices as well.
And throw in a few storms there as well.
Oh, and well, that's right. That's right.
The 20s has not been kind to Nelson.
No, and I guess from an infrastructure point of view, as we go, redevelop, build new, those kind of things, and the works that we've got with Bridge Street, we're trying to put some infrastructure in place that can cope with those types of situations. But where do we like? Has there been council conversations around where we're going to go? It's the famous shoulder season. It's the famous peak in Jan.
Yeah.
It's always that winter period. Has there been, and I can only really ask you about what council discussion there has been, but I mean, when you've got developments happening and the winter period and people are hurting, what role does council have in trying to be supportive in that area?
Yeah, the first thing is you can't beat nature, right? You'd be like the King Canute with the tides and saying you can completely overcome it. But you can do some smart things to take it into account. So, our council is actually a big spender on events. And whether it be Te Rama in the middle of winter, whether it be what we do with the Arts Festival, we need to do better at spending that money in such a way that we get some activity in those periods that is difficult for the business sector. Like I say, I don't think you'll ever overcome that biggest challenge of our visit industry. I confess I'm a bit jealous of the Queenstowns and the Taupos because they get both a winter and a summer season. The bit you need to be clear about, what is it that gives Nelson an edge in the tourism sector? And in my view, it's our nature, our opportunity for outdoor recreation, and it also is that arts element. And whether it be the Adam Chamber Music Festival, whether it's the Arts Festival, whether it's Clay Week, whether it's Jewellery Week, we do a good piece in that. Are we getting the most bangs for the buck out of that events investment and how we do that? I've got at the moment our new councillor, Nigel Skeggs, chairing an economic recovery task force, and that's getting underway and kicking the tyres on both, have we got the structure of the agencies that are involved in this here working as best they can, and are we getting the best value for money in those choices? And they're hard as to, is it that the which of these festivals and events actually play out and inject the money, attract visitors to the town, give a shot in the arm to our retailers and to our hospo sector. And the key thing there, in my view, is getting structures that keep people well connected, so that uniquely Nelson is having input and saying, well, actually, let's take most recently, we had the massive vintage car rally in town. I personally think for the 10 grand the council put into that, we got great bangs for the buck.
We did.
And that has got to be the sort of question, and the best way to make those calls is ensuring that the council and our economic development agency are as well connected as possible with the hospitality and the retail, as well as their key sort of arts institutions, around understanding what gives best bang for buck.
Fantastic. All right. Well, look, thanks, Mayor Nick. We really appreciate your time this morning and updating us with what's happening in the city. I mean, we do have to get through this difficult period, and I hope we do soon. But it sounds as though there's certainly some exciting things on the horizon.
I think it is, and I think it's important for uniquely Nelson and for council for us not to allow the doom to become too contagious. I am absolutely confident that the foundations of our Nelson City economy, those big investments in infrastructure, is that we are going to get through this, and the city has huge potential going forward. What's going on in Christchurch is where we want Nelson to be by the end of the decade.
Fantastic.
It's interesting that with what's going on this side of town, Morrison Square, as much as we're heading into winter, there is a lot of, speaking to the different businesses, Nick, there's a lot of optimism the next 2 years will be a different town, and we'll go from there. Onwards and upwards.
Way to go.
Yeah.
Thanks, Simon. That's it for now, and we'll see you again shortly for another edition of Talk of the Town.